Hello everyone, welcome to General Orlando 327 plays Final Fantasy 13. So what we're going to do today is going to upgrade the majority of the weapons that we're going to need for the remainder of the storyline. So we're going to finish every character's weapon except Saz, and one for Lightning that we're going to pick up in the next chapter, but we are going to do one of them because she's a mainstay in the party for the remainder of this chapter. By the time you watch this on YouTube, I will have gotten to the end of chapter 11 and have just yet to complete the boss fight. If you're watching these as they air. Otherwise, I am actually way behind that point at this point in the videos. Here, I'm actually the same place that I was when I finished the grinding for the previous upgrading equipment section, when we did all of the various accessories, the talismans, the haste shoes or sprint shoes, and aurora scarves. And I have some extra money left over, so we're going to go ahead and start doing the upgrades here. The first thing we need to do is go in and purchase some of the max investment rated creature components that we're going to use to upgrade to a ×3 multiplier before we actually put in the good components to finish our weapon tiers quickly. So what we're going to need is we need sturdy bones, barbed tails, and vibrant oozes, and those are completely interchangeable. They do exactly the same job as each of the other ones, but we're going to need a bunch of them anyway, so I just buy them all in one go. We're going to start with Vanille's because she is one of the easiest ones to decide who's got the best weapons to upgrade for the remainder of the game. So we are going to go with her primary role. For me is as a saboteur, so we're going to go with her Belladonna wand. If you primarily use her as a magic user, not necessarily as a sab, then the Pearl Wing Staff isn't a horrible idea. And then the Healer Staff is great if you tend to only use her as a medic. But then the magic staff for the Healer Staff maxes out at 48 rather than 131 for the Belladonna wand and 140 for the Pearl Wing Staff. So you're not much of a loss between Belladonna wand and Pearl Wing Staff for this tier. The final tier, if you do all three tiers of the weapon, then the Belladonna wand has a max magic boost of 807, and the Pearl Wing Staff has a 912. So you're not losing too much by getting the upgraded debuff ability of the Belladonna wand versus the Pearl Wing Staff. So we are going to start with that. Let's see, it's right down here. So the first thing we need to do, and I'm going to put all of these recipes in the comment section, or in the end tag, the description of the video, because there's a lot going on here. So 36 is the magic number with the creature components to move the multiplier up to ×3. So we're going to start with 36 of whichever one of those we happen to have 36 of, or a combination of them. So that automatically moves us to experience boost ×3, which means that now our heavy duty components will have a 200% increase in what they would do for experience towards whatever. We need supercomputers, or I'm sorry, we need superconductors, which I also forgot about buying. So we are gonna need. So those are purchased at Lenora's Garage. Superconductors. And we're going to be able to do 2 weapons here, and then I'm going to jump to my save that I'm actually at the end of this chapter to do the rest of them. So we need, let's see, what do we need? 23 and 47, that's 70. So we need 69 more. Alright, so that like basically splits our monies in half. We might actually be able to do another one. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it on the other file. Because I haven't done it on the other file, so that way I'll have it all done on the same file. So now we're going to upgrade the... I did the Pearl Wing Staff instead of the Belladonna Wand. Cool. Well, doesn't really matter. I got talking about the Pearl Wing Staff and then selected the wrong one. Wrong one. So we're going to do this. And then we need... How many of those superconductors? 23. So then that experience, the 38,640, is enough to max it out to the top tier, or the top level on this tier. So we're going to do that. And now you get a Belladonna Wand Star, which maxes out at 65 strength and plus 131 magic. So then that's the weapon we're going to use for her for the rest of the storyline. Post-story, we will be upgrading it to its 2nd and 3rd tiers. But if we upgrade it past, as you can see, we have the component that would move it to its 2nd tier. And actually, I'm going to do it just so you see what happens if you do this when you don't have the components / gil available to max it out to the top of the next tier. So right now we're at 65 strength and magic 131. If I were to go ahead and upgrade this, we would actually decrease to 63 strength and 127 magic. And the only advancement is that it moved to improved debuffing 2, which basically just increases the rate at which it gives her a plus to debuffing. But it's a weaker weapon, and we don't really need it for the remainder of the storyline. So we're going to stick with the Belladonna Wand at max level for the remainder of the story. Since this isn't the file that I'm going to be proceeding on, I don't really care about the fact that I upgraded it, other than to show you that it's actually a decrease to do that at this point when we don't have the ability to make enough gil to easily move it up to the next maximum. The other one we're going to do right now here is the Axis Blade for Lightning. Lightning is one of the only characters in the game that I actually use to maxed out top, first tier weapons. In fact, she is the only one that I max out 2 weapons for on the first tier. The reason I do it is because her Axis Blade is so useful to us throughout the remainder of this chapter, but we don't get her best weapon to upgrade until chapter 12. So we're going to do the Axis Blade for her for now, which means we need 36 of these, and we can combine these 27 and 9. Will be just fine to do the same effect. There we go. And then we need to use the rest of our supercomputers to, superconductors, I keep saying the wrong thing, to upgrade this one to the top of its current tier. So we go from +8/+8 strength and magic to +48/+48 strength and magic. So there we go. Alright, so then we've got those first two. I'm going to switch over to my other file so that we can do the other ones. The only person then that won't be getting an upgrade to a weapon in this video is Saz. And then in chapter 12 we will do one more video of the series of this particular upgrading before the end of the storyline, where we will do the other one for Lightning and the one for Saz. So now we're going to be jumping to where we're at the end of chapter 11, just before the final boss. And this is where I actually recommend doing these upgrades, is right before the final boss of chapter 11, because it's very useful to have it for this final boss. If you have the resources to do it, which if you're following along with my playthrough, we have plenty of resources at this point. Right now I have almost 1,000,000 gil, and I'm going to use quite a bit of it here. I already bought the Sturdy Bone, Barbed Tail, and Vibrant Oozes that we need. I have not gone in and purchased the rest of the components. So for the weapon for Fang, the reason I recommend waiting until now is because we don't actually get the weapon for Fang that I want to use until right here in this area. So that's why I usually wait until this point. But if you happen to have the resources, if you're farming for the previous upgrading videos materials, the Tetratic Crown and Tetratic Tiara, you're probably going to make some extra gil before you get all of the Tetratic gear that you need to upgrade. So you might have enough money to do a couple of those weapons, and and Lightning and Vanille are the ones that I recommend doing first, because if you're playing like I do, they're going to be the ones that are in your party. So what we need is, let's see, we need 19 perfect conductors for Fang. Where did that go? So I need 8 more of these to do Fangs. And then we're skipping Saz for the time being. We need 17 superconductors for, I don't know why I did that the long way. There we go. For Hope's weapon. And we need 47 more for Snow's weapon. So there we go. So that's all of what we need for that. As you can see, like I mentioned, I already have the Axis Blade and wherever the Belladonna wand is. There it is. The Belladonna wand finished for our 2 characters that we just did. And then, so the next one then is for Fang. We're gonna do the Taming pole that we just picked up here in Ereba. Taming pole is the one that she has equipped. And again, we're gonna do the 36 of those. And then she's the only one that uses perfect conductors. It's actually more cost efficient to do it that way than to use the superconductors, especially since I already had most of the perfect conductors. So that's gonna do that to move her taming pole up to max rank at the first tier. And that boosts her to strength and magic plus 148. She does have the stagger lock limitation on this weapon for the first and second tiers. It basically, all that means is that she can't be the one to trigger the stagger. She still adds to the chain gauge, but she can't actually be the one to push them over into a stagger, which is not really a limitation considering that she's going to primarily be a commando and a saboteur, which don't do a whole lot to boost the chain gauge. Once we're into the late story and post story, she's going to pick up some Ravager ranks, and she actually makes a pretty decent secondary Ravager. So that's gonna be one of the first roles that she picks up is Ravager. And even then, if she's gonna be in Ravager form, it's because we want the Tri-Disaster paradigm where we have 3 Ravagers, but we still want to have access to one of her other roles that she excels in. So she's not going to be primarily trying to create a stagger. So it's not that much of a limitation. Her other option would be to do the spear, I was going to say Calamity Spear, but that's later. Pandoran Spear to increase the debilitation, but that one is significantly hampered in terms of stats. And then the other option is to do the Dragoon Lance, which we get in Chapter 12, which is the one that will max out her strength. But the Dragoon Lance gives 0 to the magic stat, no matter how high its level goes. So it's not something we want to do long term. And like I said, we pick it up in Chapter 12, which is from Chapter 12 through the end of the story is not that much time. So it's not really worth keeping around just for that period. We'd still have to upgrade something else for post-game when I actually do want her to occasionally be a Ravager. And actually it decreases the magic stat for her Saboteur role as well. I guess it doesn't decrease the magic stat, but the potential level of the magic is decreased. So the other ones we need to do one for Hope. And Hope actually has a really easy decision to make. Basically, you would want to choose between Hawkeye or Vidofnir. And the only thing that Vidofnir adds is defense maintenance. And it has a much lower magic potential than Hawkeye. So that's the one we're going to use for him. I'm going to intentionally use 36 of each type of creature component, only because going forward I don't want to have them maxed out in case I pick some up along the way. Not that I won't have to buy them again anyway, and they're not that expensive. But and then we need to use 17 of the superconductors. Superconductors. This is another one that would probably be easy to do earlier in this chapter because it's not as expensive as some of the other ones. But I personally don't use Hope in my party all that much. If you like Hope better than Vanille, then you might do this one before you do the Belladonna one. Alright, and that boosts his magic to 193. And then finally, for Snow, there are a couple of good choices for Snow here. Paladin has improved Guard, which when he's in Sentinel allows him to boost the defense when he's actively guarding. And it also has it's also part of the high HP synthesis group, which gives him increased stats increased attack and magic when he's at high HP levels. The other one is Unsetting Sun, which has Stagger Lock, but it also has a high strength stat. The downside here is, of course, the fact that we have Stagger Lock, and that again, that's not a huge deal because we aren't going to be using Snow and Fang together very often, unless we're using Snow as a sentinel. So not a huge deal. Same thing. The downside, and he is a horrible Ravager throughout the entire game, even though it's one of his primary roles. So the magic stat isn't a huge deal there. On the other hand, we do need him occasionally as a Ravager. And once we get to the point where Fang is a decent Ravager, we might actually use them. One of the advantages to using the two of them together is that we have the option for 2 really good Sentinels or 2 Ravagers to go along with whoever our third party member would be. Which is typically likely to be either Saz or Lightning, depending on whether I need the magic or the Sentinel roll more. So I'm actually going to stick with Paladin, even though it has a lower strength stat, because of the improved guard ability, and like I said, primarily that's going to be his role for Snow, is going to be as a Sentinel, so the improved guard is a great ability for him. So we're going to use the rest of the supercomputers on that. Superconductors, I've done that every single time. Alright, so there's the rest of... Oh, crud, do you know what I did wrong there? I didn't use the... Alright, well, I forgot to use the Vibrant Oozes first. I have the money. I'm just going to go ahead and do it again. And at this point, we really don't need 47 of them, but I'm going to do it anyway because it just makes my calculations easier. Otherwise, I have to go back and calculate what it actually would be. And then I just won't save after we do this, and then I'll do it off camera again to proceed with the rest of the storyline. Let's do this right this time. Paladin. Vibrant Oozes. I only need 36, I don't need 99. See, that just threw me off completely. And then we'll use all the superconductors that we just picked up. There we go. Now we have Paladin Star. If you do it yourself, you will see that if I had done it right, that would have worked correctly. You would still end up with max rank. So that's all that we're gonna do now. So that's everybody except Saz. Let's see. The weapons for Saz that we're gonna need to do this, we get very early on in chapter 12. I'm sorry, we get it near the end of chapter 12 actually. We get lightnings very early on in chapter 12, but we get the one for Saz much later. And that one is the what is it? The Antares Deluxes that we're going to pick up. We could do the thing with Saz is that he has multiple weapons that supplement different areas of his combat style, and yet he's not a great character for the party in any role. So and he also has weapons that have potential high upside with a very high downside. One of the ones that's actually very useful to us is the Antares Deluxe. That's the one that we're going to use. The other ones that could potentially be useful, the Spiky Defenders, have the augment maintenance, which is useful for Saz. On the downside, it does not have a great stats, and it doesn't have useful synthesized abilities. The reason we're going to use the Antares Deluxes is because of the fact that it has great synthesis with the Aurora Scarf and the Sprint Shoes that we already typically use. So it enhances the ATB speed The other one, the other one that we could use are the Procyon, which have stagger maintenance, which means that it takes longer for the chain gauge to deplete during a stagger, and it also has the ability to synthesize random instant chain, which is very, very useful in a couple of fights, but not useful the rest of the time, which is why we're going to end up with the Antares Deluxes, because it fits our playstyle very well. And it gives a higher magic boost than the Procyons do. And the Procyons, even the synthesis ability is unpredictable at best. So that's going to do it. We've done all of the weapons except one for Saz, and we're going to do one more for Lightning in the next chapter. So stay tuned. Keep watching the playthrough, and you'll see when we pick up those weapons. And then shortly after I get the one for Saz, I'll do the third installment of this series, which will be those two weapons. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to like this video and share it with your friends, and then subscribe to the channel for more content like this. One of the other things I'm going to do once we get through the storyline of the game is I'm going to take each character and go through from start to finish of the game with just that character's progression, and talk about both the roles in the Crystarium that you want to aim for, and the weapon choices, and why we would go into more detail about why we would actually choose one weapon over another for upgrading weapons. So that should be interesting. I think it's a unique look at the characters from a practical perspective, rather than just doing what we're doing here and going along throughout the storyline and just doing minor things here and there, but to give you a broader overarch of the character, both in terms of the ability development and also in terms of potential, and compared to where they are in the story at that point, what other options we have, and what should be prioritized when. So stay tuned for that. We're not too far away from the end of the storyline, so that should be coming relatively soon. Thank you all for watching.